Hi, and welcome to SPED Homeschool Conversations. And I'm so glad that you have joined us for this episode. On this episode, we're going to be talking with Suzanne Gose about the topic of the benefits of learning a foreign language for any student. And so I want to welcome you, Susan. Thank you for joining us.
Nice to be here.
So Suzanne is the author of Flip-Flop Spanish and also Flip-Flop French. And we're going to be talking about languages and how to learn them. But Suzanne, I want you to introduce yourself to our audience and maybe start out by telling us how all of that came about.
Well, sure. I was actually a long time ago, pre-babies, another lifetime it feels like. I was a public school teacher, and so I taught Spanish and public speaking and English as a second language in the public schools. I loved it. I worked hard. I'm not anti-public school in the least because it was my first way to teach and connect with students. I retired whenever baby number one was on the way and really missed it. So I started teaching Spanish classes to homeschoolers because that's who was available, was the homeschoolers during the day, and I didn't want to be teaching in the evenings. And so I didn't know that I was going to turn into a homeschooler. I just enjoyed teaching. So I put a little email out and said, hey, does anybody want a class or a tutor or anything? And the next morning I had 42 emails.
Wow, I was going to say you probably got a really good response, because that's something that I think a lot of parents really, they feel unequipped. Yes.
And I loved it. And so it was a really good fit. So I started teaching homeschoolers, and I realized, wow, this, I had a little 9-month-old. And he wasn't really that engaging at that point, he didn't take too much work. And so I said, this is what I want my kids to turn out to be. This is because I didn't know that children could look you in the eye and thank you for class. I didn't know that they were eager. There were students out there that were eager to learn, because that hadn't been my experience in the public schools. And so I thought, this is what I want. So, it's the second week or so that I turned into a homeschooler, was because I was teaching homeschool students, and I said, this is how I want my child to be. So you not only were teaching Spanish, you were being taught the homeschool culture, and it kind of was a good mix. It was a wonderful mix, because all of my students were, much older than my own child. And so all the moms there were 10 to 15 years older than me. So I was surrounded by this wonderful, these veteran moms who have been homeschooling and were the pioneers for us. And so I really never had any worries about what's going to happen, because I had 20 students a week, and then up and up and up, 40, 50, 60 students a week every year that were just showing me how wonderful learning on your own and being self-paced could be. So a lot of my fears were just dissolved, because they were all 10 years ahead of where I was.
Right. And so this Flip-Flop Spanish, the curriculum that you developed, was created by teaching these students. Is that correct?
Yes. So people said, I can't make it to the classes, or it's too far away. Could I just buy the homework packets? And I said, goodness, what a pain. And so I printed them all out, and they're about 30 a year. And then I made CDs, or back then it was cassette tapes. I would make cassette tapes to send home.
Really?
Yes. One at a time. I didn't even have a recorder.
You didn't have a
just
copy?
One at a time. Nope. And after that happened about 20 or 30 times, my husband said, why don't you get published? And I said, well, I would have to make a CD. And he said, so? I went, oh, okay. And so all those homework packets, I reformatted them so that parents could use it. I tested it out on a guinea pig group of families. And then after that, we just started doing workbook 1, workbook 2. Anything that wasn't well received by the children, of course, did not make it into the workbooks.
And so they've been thoroughly tested.
Yes, thoroughly tested.
That's awesome. And so your curriculum that you use is very hands-on, and I think that's one of the things that when you talk about learning a foreign language, a lot of parents will step away from, because it seems so abstract when we approach foreign languages in general. And I know, looking at, as a homeschool parent myself, I had no idea what to look for to make it more simple, hands-on, easier to understand for, I guess, a child. Because a lot of even things that I tried that my kids just complained about them too. You know, we tried quite a few different curriculums with my kids when they were younger. And so, so as we're talking about foreign languages for any learner, what are the components that really make foreign language click with the child?
Right. Well, the main thing is that, like you said, it's very abstract. And so what you do want to do is you want to make it concrete. So no matter what curriculum you choose, especially as we're talking about any learner, no matter how old you are, what your intelligence is, you know, we have all these multiple intelligences. We have learning styles with visual, audio, and tactile learners. You want to make it concrete. So, you know, so if for us, we just have the flashcard of ice cream. This is such a nice tactile, hard, something that you can physically touch. So any curriculum that you have, you can do this. You don't have to, you know, of course, I would love it if you bought my Spanish flashcards, but you don't have to. You write the Spanish or the French or the Russian or whatever it is on the same side as the English. Write out your phonetic spelling so you're not wondering, when you go back to say that, you're not wondering again, wait, am I saying this one correctly? Write it the way you would think it, and then draw a picture or have a photo or grab some clip art from the internet, whatever you need to make it where this is a tactile thing that you can achieve on your own. And any student is going to say, oh, well, I can learn that word. Well, if you can learn this word, and this is ice cream, helado, can you learn a phrase with it? And so the difference with us learning just nouns is you want to be able to learn a phrase, so make it usable. So this is I like, and then this is ice cream. And so you're able to say, I like ice cream. And that's what changes it from this nebulous, how do I say it? How do I put words together? How do I make a sentence? To something very concrete. And then, you know, your kid is going to immediately say, wait, I want to say, I don't like, you know, and so they're going to want to change it up. And there you go. Suddenly you have a very concrete method, photos only or pictures only if you're creating it on your own. And then, of course, you can add in the words. I don't know if it's backwards or not on your screen. On my screen, it's backwards.
No, it is the correct.
Oh, good. Okay.
So. But that makes it so much easier, because I think a lot of times, you know, when we're looking at curriculum, it's in a notebook where you can't get off the page, or it's on the screen and you can't pull it off. And so you're trying in your mind to move all those things around where, like you're showing us, you can physically grab them.
Yes. And you really, you know, you can do that with anything. So whatever curriculum you use where they say, hey, translate this sentence or learn this list of words, go ahead and grab an index card and take that one word and make it something that you can physically grab. And so this will help with decoding with, again, any learner, whether they have audio issues or reading issues or mimicking issues, no matter what it is, they can see it. And that one thing and hold it will just change, you know, it removes so many obstacles. Also for us, you know, after puberty, our brains need a lot more help memorizing stuff. So as you're learning your Russian for your talk next month, I would highly recommend doing this, making your own flashcards so you can learn one word at a time, one card at a time.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I've been trying hard, but learning even the new alphabet is difficult. Right? Yeah. Like you said, I don't have as much plasticity in my brain as I used to.
Right. Yeah.
But I think, you know, there are some benefits, like you said. So go into the benefits for neurotypical learners, and then let's talk about after that the additional benefits of therapeutic use of a foreign language.
Sure. So for any neurotypical student, you're going to have memory improvement, short-term and long-term memory. So I've had so many people come to me and say, oh, I don't want to put my 8th grader or my 7th grader or my 6th grader in Spanish yet because they have memory issues. I'm like, that's when you want to. And so they think, well, that's an obstacle and I'm going to frustrate them. No, they need more practice. They need more exercise. So the brain is a muscle and we want to exercise those weak spots. We don't want to avoid that. We want to actually put some energy into it.
You know, so often parents will say, well, my child can't get through their regular work. And so we're just pulling everything else out. And I always say, no, stop, add more. Because the more you add that interest that child and has something outside of their most difficult areas, will really cause, like you said, their brain to stretch in ways that maybe the other things you're working on doesn't.
Right. Well, and foreign language is one of those things. There's a part in the back of our brain that does not ignite without foreign language use. It's not just the learning of it, it's the use of it, yes. And it just stays that gray, sad little blob in the back. And if it's not used, if we don't ever speak to someone to actually communicate, like if you wanted to say something to me in Russian and you were communicating to me, I wouldn't know what you're saying. However, your brain would then form some synapses that did not happen before. So that's why the memory is improving, is because there's new roadways that are being made now that there was no need to go in that part of the brain before.
Right, exactly. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. So whenever you add, right. And so whenever you add in foreign language, especially for the special needs or for any type of learner, it's going to create in them other roadways that they actually need. They may need that, and you're not going to unlock those pathways except in this one manner. There is one way you can do it with music. So if you teach them how to express themselves with music, that's also will access that part of the brain. But it has to be a special type, and you have to actually be communicating feeling or some sort of message through the music. So if you have somebody that is mute, that can't speak, they're non-audial, then you can do it through music as well. So don't give up hope if you have someone that is a non-speaker and say, well, they can't communicate and, I can't open that part of the brain. Yes, you can with music.
Yep, we talked to Mary Fradiati a couple weeks ago about music therapy and a couple programs that she works with in New York with their homeschoolers and talked about that in particular. So that bridges the gap,
Good, that confirms, right.
Yep, definitely. So what are some other benefits for even
other benefits? Yeah, there's tons. So improves problem solving, just because of the decoding part of it. You're trying to figure out, okay, what does this mean? How do I say it with even the alphabet? So that'll improve their math skills. Also facial recognition. So even with, like I said, a neurotypical child, with teenage young men, they don't always get your sarcasm. They don't look at your face. They literally go word for word what you're saying, and they lack relationship understanding. Well, foreign language causes them to look into your face. They're saying, wait, is what you're saying matching up with your face? And so then that creates a habit that now they're going to do that in the second language. So guess what? They're going to do that in the first language. And so it's really, really good. Yeah. For all types of learners. Let's see. And then the last one is super fun for me because I love grammar, but it improves your grammar in both languages. So
right, because most languages don't use grammar in the structure that we use it, and it makes you really think. Right. How am I using this, and is it appropriate or is it not? And I think we get into that rote. This is just the way it is. This is how I've always talked. And we don't even think about it, but that does make us take notice of. What am I doing and why?
Right. Yeah, I'm constantly saying to my students that Spanish is not English with Spanish vocabulary. You don't get to just plug in vocabulary words and it's going to work. It's a whole nother system of communicating. It's the easiest second language to learn. So, I mean, it really is. If your first language is English, Spanish is going to be the easiest one for you because it is quite similar, and there's just a few rules and very few what are the ones called? Exceptions. Very few exceptions to those rules. So it's quite simple to learn, but it's going to improve your grammar in both languages at the same time.
Yeah, and it doesn't have as many sounds to each of the letters like the English language does, which makes it so confusing to teach to our kids. And I learned Italian last year when I went to Italy, and I knew Spanish enough that it made it super easy because Italian is so much like Spanish.
Very similar. Yeah.
So there you go. Definitely Spanish is. And I think you even quoted that Spanish is the highest second language spoke in the United States. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. After English, it's the most spoken language, right?
Especially here in Texas.
Especially here in Texas, right? I mean, I love it when people, they want to learn German or French, and I understand that. I took French in high school. I took French. So, but you live in Texas, learn something that you can actually use immediately, and that will have a sticking power, and then go for that third language. And so that's what I recommend to all of our Texan friends. They're saying, well, my kid really wants to do French. That's fine. Give me a year of Spanish, and then you can do 2 at once, but just not that initial year. That initial year, you want to do, one language. And so I would choose the one they're going to have the most opportunity to speak, not one that you're going to have as much opportunity to actually use it.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know when we started a foreign language, I avoided Spanish because my one son had speech issues and couldn't say his R sound. How do you work with kids who have that trouble?
You just keep working with them, just like with English, and you don't correct. You just let it go. You understand what they mean, and we're going for comprehension. We're going for communication. So if I was a speech therapist, okay, well, I focus on that during my speech therapy time, but that's not my goal. So you want to figure out, what is my goal? My goal is for these children to increase their influence. That's why I want my children to learn Spanish, is because I want their influence to be greater. And so if we see somebody who doesn't speak English and they are a native speaker, I want mine to be the ones that can help. And they're the ones that reach across, and they're the ones that show the love. And so that's why we're learning Spanish. Are they going to be able to understand you if your accent's not perfect? Yes. Do we understand people that are speaking English as a second language? Yes. Exactly. And we think it's adorable. We don't go,
exactly.
You mispronounced that. No, you never correct them. You're so, you're impressed. You know a whole other language.
I thought that was interesting. I was talking to my brother and sister-in-law who live in France, and they said, we often we think that French people are so, kind of stuck up, but it was interesting. My sister-in-law's point of view, she goes, the problem is they've been drilled that if they're not perfect, that it just isn't right to say at all. And so in their culture, that's the reason that they come off so snooty, is because they're so fearful. And she said, once you start just blurting it out, they're happy to blurt out whatever they know in English too. Right. And so definitely, use what you have, because it's better than nothing, and coming off like you don't care.
Absolutely. Trying is better than not trying every single time.
Yeah. And that's such a good lesson to teach our kids too, that their best effort is their best effort, and it should be applauded.
That's right.
So let's talk about therapy.
Yes.
And using a foreign language as therapy for a child.
Yes. So a lot of times, therapy, so I have a niece that's autistic, and her therapy sometimes feels like punishment to her. She feels like she's being punished because she doesn't respond in the same way as whoever else. And so that's bad, or that's wrong. And so that's a correction that she is having to endure and do over and over again. She's high functioning, but so saying something again and again is very frustrating to her, but she has to say something back so that we can understand, did you hear that? You have to repeat it back. Well, you can form that habit. Just use Spanish, just use French, so we're looking at habit forming rather than, I know I need to, put my plate in the sink. I know I need to, whatever it is, say it in Spanish. And so then it becomes fun. There's a cadence to it because it's not English. And so it kind of gets sing-song to them, and they're learning a code. And so mimicking, repetition, both of those things will help the synapses to fire differently. It's going to improve their memory again. And it's comprehension again in 2 languages. They're still communicating, and they're communicating now in 2 languages at the same time. Because they're having to understand the words both ways. So it's just elevating their thought process all the way through. Another one is with touching and repeating and looking. So this is something, especially with those that have visual memory loss, or, any kind of vision therapy issues. And so if we have, let's do the leer card. So this is to read. And so this is an action verb. It's leer, and it says to read. And so we're focusing on the picture. And if we have this one with the I like, and I say, touch, me gusta, and she might have to flip it over. And that is okay, because she is now reading. She is looking for clues, and she's working on that visual memory. And so why not use a second language instead of just a picture of a circle or a picture of a squirrel or a dog or whatever. Why not use a photo that is going to now teach her a second language? And so the next time she sees something, she can say, oh, me gusta, instead of I like it, which is nice but repetitive. But if she says me gusta, she suddenly gets, oh, wow, Kate, you're speaking Spanish. Instead of, yes, we know you like it. Yes, you said you liked it a lot. Yes. And so it's just, it just makes everybody just respond differently whenever it's a second language rather than just, quote unquote, just English. So it really changes the feel of the therapy, and it gives them something to be proud of. You know, I'm learning a whole nother language. I'm good enough. My brain is just as good as somebody else's. I don't have to do less. And to me, that's one of the biggest things is confidence building.
Yeah, definitely. I think we limit.
Yes.
Instead of trying to find ways to expand. And really what you're saying is, you know, adding a second language in allows so much more than a lot just of the growth. Language.
And it's understandable for those of you that are listening that say, well, oh gosh, I didn't do it for the first 12 years because, and I know the because you didn't want to create another obstacle. You didn't want them to fail at something else. It already is so hard. You don't want to add something else that they can't do. But you know what they can do is one card. And so once they do that one card and they learn how to, even if they copy it, you know, maybe use it for copy work, and they're so excited because this is so much more interesting to copy than this. That's boring. They've seen that. They've seen that in Dick and Jane and Spot. They know that one. This is way more interesting to sound out. And then they say, well, what do I like? And so they're driving the sentence structure, and boom, you have a foreign language learner.
Yeah, well, and it's a lot like the pet cards that kids use that are nonverbal. I was thinking about this, you know, for those that are nonverbal, you know, you can just change the language on their iPad. And they could be understanding a second language already.
That's true. That would be funny. I wonder if you could do one word at a time. I wonder how you would bridge that gap. Okay, so whoever does that has to tell me and call me.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. We got to work that out because, that would definitely, it would, if they're already good at what they're doing, why not?
Yes.
Why not add something different to mix it up? Yeah. So you also talk about character building as a benefit. And how does that work?
So building, like I said before, it's just confidence and is the main thing. You're also recognizing that you're not the only culture. So as Americans, we're a bit egocentric. We've raised our children to be fairly egocentric. A lot of times with neurotypical or special needs, it doesn't matter what it is. It's difficult to take them out of the country and show them. And videos, well, there's so much that's already fantastic. That doesn't mean a lot to them, you know. So if you show them a movie of a country or a documentary, they've seen it all. They've seen aliens on Mars. They've seen, you know, they're not that impressed. You know, anything is feasible now. If you can dream it, you can do it. So this is a way that teaching them another language, and then when they watch a movie in that language, not about that country, but for that country. So if you go get a documentary that's for Spanish speakers, then they can understand it. It will help them to not be so egocentric and recognize that there's not the best culture. Like, our culture isn't number one. It's just our culture, and it's where we live. Cultures are all valid. Languages are all valid. And I remember saying this to my children. They were younger, and they just were, are you anti-American? I was like, no, I'm not anti-American. I'm saying that cultures are all valid. And I had inadvertently raised them the same way, very egocentric. America's number one and nothing else exists. As a Spanish teacher, it just, without effort, they're going to be raised that way. And so languages help them to break out and say, okay, well, who is speaking this? Who is using this? They want to know, because they don't want, you know, if you just do nouns, they don't want ice cream and zanahoria, they don't want carrot and ice cream. They want to be able to make it useful. So it's got to be interesting. Well, if it's going to be interesting, they want to know who is using this, who says this. And so it spreads their understanding to the other countries.
Definitely. So. Yeah. Yeah, so you can build in geography, you can build in history of that country, you can build in cooking lessons, you can add all these things that will cause your kids to take in even more information just based around the language that they're studying.
Yeah, art, music, all of it. I mean, literature. You know, I have a son that's reading a French novel right now, not in French, but it's but it was a French novel and it's been translated to English. And so he's noticing the cultured references because he has a broader view. And so it's not, oh, that guy's weird. It's, oh, that guy's French. And so they have a different perspective. And it's not a wrong perspective. It's just a different perspective.
Right.
So it's very interesting.
You hear so many people when they go to foreign countries and they come back, and there's the shock of if that's the first time they've experienced a foreign culture. Right. To think that, oh, everybody doesn't do it the way we do it, but to be open-minded enough to realize that our way is not always the right way either.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Well, even in our Christian faith, I mean, we want to put Jesus in our American box, and that doesn't work. Right. So yeah, to put into the culture, you know, to take everything that we're learning into that one place. That's different places. So to a lot of our parents, this may seem rather daunting. Yes. So how? That's the most important part. Yes. How do I start? So maybe you bought a big giant book. I'm looking on my shelf if I have one. Here we go. Here's a nice fat one. So here's this giant, huge, look at that sucker. And you said, okay, I'm going to teach my kid this huge 300-page thing. I don't think I'd buy that book.
I know. It's so scary. And it has the gall to say a self-teacher. It is not a self-teacher. That's a terrible book. It's a great book. It's just not great for self-teaching. So you say, how do I begin? And so I would just say, start with a goal. And so your goal needs to be very, very low, because if you don't reach your goal the first time, you're creating a new obstacle. Honestly, a lot of us are going in with an obstacle because we took foreign language in high school and maybe we didn't succeed, or we got A's, but we can't speak. And so we already have this built-in obstacle that we're having to overcome, and you're trying to not pass that obstacle on to your children. So your goal needs to be something very simple, like 3 words. So I would suggest an opinion. So I'm going to bring up my card again. So whatever language you're doing, you know, I like in whatever target language, and then something you like. So if you like carrots, me gusta la zanahoria. If you like ice cream, me gusta el helado. Boom. You have 3 cards. So you study these 3 cards. And where I would put these 3 cards is I would hole punch them. Here's one that has a hole punch in it. So I would put the hole punch in it, put it on a ring, and put it in your silverware drawer. Because your silverware drawer is something you open frequently. And so you're not, right, several times a day. And so you're not having to find it on the shelf. You're not having to dig it out of a folder. It's something that you see all the time. And so whenever you get out your forks, you grab these 3 cards out, you say them out loud. Hopefully you've written your second language, your phonetic spelling, and your English, but you're focusing on the picture you drew or the photo side. And this is going to create that thinking in Spanish or thinking in your foreign language rather than always reading and translating.
Right, because that you don't remember unless you're reading the language at that point. But that's not how you start. You start by speaking a language and listening to it, not reading it. Right. So that would be your goal, is 3 cards. I would say for the week, at the end of that week, you give yourself a little party. Sometimes it's just a high five. Sometimes it's a silly dance. At our house, having a Coca-Cola, a Coke is a huge deal. So I wouldn't do a whole Coke. I'd do like half a Coke. but some kind of reward, you know, if you're not a sweets house, maybe you give them a Hershey kiss, whatever it is that we did it. And so you give them a nice small reward that they're, it's like, yes. And so neurotypical special needs, no matter what it is, you want to reward this very small goal that you have achieved. And then that propels you to the next goal, which is maybe 3 more words or 12 more words or, you know, sentences. It's whatever you want to do next, but start small and then use that to build. So no matter what you bought, even if I have that big scary book,
I can still open up to the first page and choose 3 words, get out my index cards, they're 50 cents at the grocery store, and make 3, just make 3. Just start with 3. Don't start with a page, start with words.
Right. And so starting with the small goals, building to the bigger goals, and then working cyclically, I think is kind of what you've been talking about, is that this all just gets built in, it all gets incorporated, the goals make it bigger, but the stuff that you were doing at the beginning is still
the same thing. Yes. And so just like when you first learned how to play any sport, tennis, baseball, soccer, at the beginning, you're running up to that ball and you're thinking about how many steps you have and how you're going to hit it. Are you going to hit it with your toe or the side of your foot? How are you going to kick that ball? You don't want to trip over the ball. You don't want to miss the ball. I've missed the ball before kicking the soccer ball, and you don't want to do that at the very beginning. Your thought process is so tied to how. Well, your brain is similar. And so at the beginning, you're thinking, how am I going to remember this one word? Probably by the end of this seminar or this interview, you're going to see a kid in an orange shirt and you're going to be like, that looks like the Me Gusta kid, because you've seen it so many times that this is emblazoned in your head. Well, your brain has now learned how to learn. And so you don't have to do 3 words the next week. The next week you can still do Me Gusta, but instead of just doing a noun, you can say, I like to read, instead of I like the cake or I like the ice cream. You actually get to add in verbs. And so you're going to start leapfrogging, and because your brain is saying, I can grab words more easily. Even with special needs kids, the same idea is going to happen with them. They're going to get better. I mean, how many times have we seen kids that just get fixated on something and then that's all they want to do? What a great thing that they would want to learn all their Spanish flashcards, and that's all they want to do. And so, and you're going to see their memory improve and their decoding improve in other areas.
Definitely. Yes. And, we find that that's so true. As parents say, well, we had something major happen in our family. We had to stop school. And yet, in some states where they're still required to test, guess what? My child improved the same amount without doing the school. And it's because we are constantly working on those synapses, whether we're in a book or not. And so, so definitely, don't think that you're taking time away from doing something important to add in these other things. It really does help round out your child, and it helps them learn in ways that you maybe didn't even think they would learn.
That's right.
So I want to let our viewers know that we are taking questions. We are live right now on our Facebook group, and I've got one question in so far, but if you have a question that you want Suzanne to answer before we are done, we still have almost a half an hour, so don't feel rushed, but if you do have a question, definitely put that in the feed so that so I can see it and read it off to her, and we can get your question answered. But the one question that is up there, I'm going to read this to you, Suzanne, and it says, what age do you recommend starting your program?
Okay, so for the See It and Say It flip-flop Spanish, so this is the flashcard method, and so it's designed for the whole family. We have tested it on ages 3 to 93, and so we had a 93-year-old neighbor, and at the time my youngest was 3, and he was really interested in his brain health. His wife had died several years prior, and he noticed that his memory was slipping. So he read an article about Alzheimer's, and his dad had Alzheimer's, and so he said, I read an article that if I learn a second language, it can actually stave off Alzheimer's by up to 10 years. And so at 93, he thought, well, that's great, because that means I'll be 103. That's right, I'll make it to 103 and still have all my faculties. So I had my 3-year-old sitting next to this 93-year-old gentleman, and they were laying out flashcards, and they were saying, I like this, E. And so I had taught them the word and so we made a flashcard for the word and she, the 3-year-old, she put it down on the ground all the way down the kitchen, and he over and stooped over and looked at each word and said it out in Spanish, only looking at the photo side. And so, so anyhow, so that's just a little story about, we've tested all the way down to 3. If you have a 2-year-old that is really linguistically advanced and is speaking very well and is interested and isn't going to eat the cards, because mine would have eaten the cards at 2. So you have to think about what kind
you
of
can
two-year-old you
laminate
have.
them though, can't you?
You could laminate them. And they're pretty sturdy. I actually chose this size because little hands don't bend things that are this small. If it's bigger, then they would automatically bend it.
Yes.
And so I had 3x5 cards in my Spanish classes, and the first thing those 3-year-olds did was just bend it right in half. And so I tried many, many sizes until I got to the baseball size, and all the 3-year-olds just picked them up and moved them around on the counter, and we'd do it on the carpet, and they loved it because they didn't have to be able to read. They looked at the photo and they could speak Spanish.
And they're really, like, you sent me a copy.
Yes.
They're soft. I mean, they don't have, they're not rough, so you can slide them. You can push them over the top of each other. And I think that adds to the tactileness of them too. So I just want to let everybody know that.
Yes, thank you. So anyhow, to answer your question, as early as you want. So if you're motivated and you have a child that's motivated, do it now. Of course, the whole curriculum is a 2-year curriculum. It has lessons broken down into about 10 minutes a day, 3 times a week, has the audio on there. And so it has it all laid out for you. You're learning 6 cards at a time. I tell you what order to put them in. There's games. There's all kinds of activities, touch and repeat. And so it depends. Do you want to add in 10 minutes 3 times a week? You can do that with your whole family at once, especially like at lunchtime or breakfast. If you say, wait, I just want to start, you can totally start with just just a set of flashcards. But really, there isn't too young of an age underneath, as long as, I would say, as young as 3. I haven't seen a whole bunch of 2-year-olds that have been successful with it. So I would wait till 3, but after that, anytime, all the way up to 93. He was actually 99 when he stopped. And so, and he asked me to change the box every year. I was like, no, sir, I cannot change the box. So it says right there on the box, 3 to 93. And he's like, well, now I'm 96. So I was like, I'm sorry, sir. He was wonderful. And he didn't get Alzheimer's, never got Alzheimer's, was quick as a whip all the way.
Wow. Well, that's an awesome testimony to go with that. And so your 3-year-old is now beyond 3, and I'm sure that you don't have kids in your co-op class that are 3, but
no. Not anymore. They all grew up. So, but lots of families across the nation do use it as young as 3. And the beauty of it is if you find out that, I thought they were ready, but they're not quite, it's non-consumable. You put it back on the shelf, pull it off again. It's not like it's a workbook that's being used up. So just, feed that motivation when they're ready. So start and try, that's what I would say. 1 word is more than 0 words. So go ahead and give it a shot.
Right. And so, building something new into your schedule is sometimes difficult. We have to build a habit. But in getting to that point of creating a habit, what are your best recommendations for parents that say, oops, I always forget, or I just can't seem to find that place that this works? So what are some, I guess, maybe more creative out of the box ways?
Sure. So one of them we already talked about. Is using the silverware drawer. So putting anything that you have to do, putting it in the silverware drawer is a great, honestly, for anything. I'll tell you, mine that I always missed was terrible. The whole reason I'm homeschooling, and I would forget to do scripture memory every day. So the way I did that was I put our little scripture memory cards in the silverware drawer, was one way. Another way is start with it. And so when you start the day with that, it's like, yes, I did that thing that I always used to forget. And it really just propels you into more and more goal setting and goal succeeding whenever you start with that thing that you've been forgetting for 3 months or 6 months. And you just kick yourself every night. Oh, I forgot to do that again. So start with it, put it in the silverware drawer. Another thing is to do it with what we call a trigger. So a trigger for us is eating. Anytime we would sit down to eat is when you do the thing that you forget to do. And so what was it? What's our trigger for this week? Oh, it was multiplication tables. Okay, Mom, we're eating lunch. And so at lunchtime, we would all sit around and do multiplication tables or whatever it is. Because the thing that you forget changes from year to year. You get good at that one thing, and then next year you figure out something new.
Right. It's that habit building that you got to do. And
right. So once you achieve the habit, use that mealtime as a new thing to remember. Breakfast time sometimes is harder because you are getting the day going and maybe there's a lot more activity. But snack time is also a really nice thing. So, that mid-afternoon snack, especially for foreign language, because it only takes 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be some super long, drawn-out thing. Just 10 to 15 minutes, 5 or 6 flashcards, and then you can move on. Another one that's one of my favorites is in the car. So if we put these flashcards on the ring, like I said, and you hole punch them and you put them on a ring there, keep them in your car, the kids can flip through them and learn them as they go. And then right before you get out, so you stop the car, you put it in park and say, okay, nobody's getting out until y'all tell me this word. And you hold it up so you get to see this side and they're looking at the photo side. And so you're learning too, because our brain actually works better with the one-to-one translation after puberty. Their brain works better with the photo cue.
Got it.
And so,
so it's like a pop quiz every time you're in the car. So
every time you're about to get out of the car, right? Or before my key goes in, hey guys, before I turn on that beautiful AC that you're just waiting for the AC to go on, you tell me these 6 cards.
Minnesota, yes.
That's right. So yeah, parking the car, any parking lot can be a trigger. And the final one is keep it in your purse. These are, make your own flashcards, just keep them in your purse. And anytime you find yourself waiting, instead of pulling out your phone, pull out the flashcards and make it interactive. That's what language is about. We don't often speak to screens, we speak to people. So try and keep it interactive with the flashcards instead of the screens. So I think those are the most ones that help people that are forgetful or are trying to habit form, like you said.
Right, yeah. And it's just remind yourself it's going to take time and you need to be patient with yourself and gracious because you're not going to get it right away. And it's something that's just going to take time to build up. So we have another question. I'm going to put it up on the screen and I'll read it to you and then I'll let you answer it. Can you use your curriculum for a high school student that needs to take a foreign language and have the child earn high school credit for it? I'm looking at Spanish curriculum for my oldest daughter that will be a 9th grader next year with different needs, ADHD, anxiety, and learning disabilities.
Okay, so for high schoolers, the Texas state credentials require 1,000 words. They require 2 tenses, 3 tenses, present, preterite, and imperfect. They require a certain number of hours of speaking comprehension, listening comprehension, being able to read and write in the different tenses, and all the different, almost like diagramming sentences as well. I taught public school, high school, and my students, I presented to them every year. I presented my students 1,000 words. They remember about 200 at the end of the year. So, so I would say, I don't know what state the mom is in that's asking, but for me, as a former public school teacher, I would say yes. What's your goal? If you're trying to check off the check marks on the Texas state credentialed list, then no, see it and say it is not going to hit all those grammar points. What it is going to hit is your children are going to be able to speak, and they're going to know more than 250 words. They're going to understand how to put sentences together, and they're going to have a confidence in that ability rather than know, quote unquote, 1,000 words and not be able to say, where's the bathroom? And so, so it just depends on your goal. Yeah, so if you're, the one that really wants to check it off, no, it's not going to. It tells you I don't have a box with me, but on the back of the box, it'll tell you all the grammar points you hit. It's about half of high school Spanish 1, and it's about the part that my students did remember after 45 minutes a day, every single day for 180 days. That's what my students remembered. And it's unfortunate because they didn't remember it with confidence. They could kind of muddle through. They could kind of sort of say some things. Right. And so I created this curriculum so that not only do you know it, but you know it well. So it just depends on the mom's goal. And so for me, I would say, yes, I put in the time. My children have attempted all, these 3 tenses, But so I would look at it more as, did I do it effectively and did I do it consistently? And if I did, I would give them that 1 year of Spanish conversation. I would not call it high school level 1. Okay, that's what I would not do. I would call it Spanish conversation.
Spanish conversation instead.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I remember taking Spanish in high school, and I think I took Spanish too, and I came out with not knowing much of anything. And so
right.
if you can come out knowing, I mean, really, like you said, if that is your goal, that you don't want to just focus on getting the hours in for your student,
Right.
because I think in the end, when they do go to college, they're going to be tested at what level they're at, and that's going to show what they know, not what's on their transcript, because they do those pre-tests, and those pre-tests mean everything for your student.
Yes.
So, more so than what's on their transcript. Yeah,
right.
They don't
now for my for my high school classes this year, I teach weekly classes, and they do hit all the state credentials, and we do some drill and kill. In order to get through it, you have to do some drill and kill. So the See It and Say It is designed for mom to teach at home. I will be recording my classes this year, and then making a video product out of it, or some sort of downloaded product out of it. But that won't happen. I'll start recording them, and then after we record them, then I'll have to test it on on other families and things like that. So it is coming, and there are some video classes out there that if you want to hit those, but a classroom is going to be the best way to get both. If you want the Texas state credentials and your children to be able to speak, a classroom setting is going to be the best for that. So maybe look for a local class, or do it with your family, where it's more than just one student at a time. They must speak, or it's not going to stay. It's going to leave.
Yeah, exactly. I know we hired a private tutor for my daughter this year to do French, and she has gone leaps and bounds above anything that she's ever done for a foreign language. And it's with a college student who's studying French, and she studied abroad, but she's harder on her than I ever would be.
Right.
And so, yeah, it works out well, but it gets stretches her definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
And she's probably motivated to speak to her. They want to communicate. And so, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Well, so you have some video links I'm going to put those up in our feed.
Okay.
I think I can do that. Maybe I might have to put it up later.
Okay.
But the first video link I'm going to put up is the one that you shared with me. It's the Facebook link.
Okay. The one with the flashcards? How to learn Spanish for real? Okay.
Yes.
So that's fun. It's just set to some music, and it's just showing, putting those flashcards out in order. So it's just showing, so if Spanish is not your target language, showing how to break down some languages down to the sentence starters, the verbs, and the nouns, and showing you how to lay out that sentence and making it extremely tactile. So again, any intelligence level, the multiple intelligences that we have in all of our different kids, and they're all so diverse, anybody can move those cards around on a table and learn a second language. And so that's a fun way to see it.
If we have people that are listening in from our podcast or our YouTube station, that when this is recorded, so they can go to your Facebook page. Is that correct? And is that just Flip Flop Spanish is the name of your Facebook page? Right.
You can just type in Flip Flop Spanish and it'll come up, and you'll see my videos and things that we're doing here on the farm sometimes, but usually it's a word a day or a learning style technique, or asking you a question about your favorite color in Spanish, and some fun, easy conversational Spanish. Yeah.
So just something to kind of stretch that lesson just a little bit more and get you thinking.
Yeah.
That. Great. And then you also have a YouTube channel.
Yes.
And so I'm going to put up in the feed also the YouTube link that you shared with me. And I think that was a demonstration of your one curriculum. Was that the
See It and Say It?
The See It and Say It.
Right. So the flashcard method. So we sell the flashcards separately so that you can just, get something small and get started, because I don't want to create a new obstacle for you. But then if you say, I really do want to know how to lay it out, I want the pronunciation, I need the audio, I need the tactile, I want all the manual and exactly which cards do I learn in which order, then that's what See It and Say It does for you. So, and at the beginning of the seminar, we talked about the workbooks, and that was basically the workbooks are a different methodology. They worked really, really great on firstborn. My firstborn, man, he loved workbooks. And then secondborn came along and, would not touch a pencil. And so I had to create something new. And so that's when the flashcards came. And he had some visual processing stuff. And so the flashcards really helped to pull him out of some of his feelings like I can't because I can't read. Well, when the words jump around on the page, how do you overcome that? And so that's what we overcame with our flashcards. So he was learning Spanish, and it wasn't in his dreaded, the thing that he disliked the most was reading at that time. And so this gave him a way to excel without having to worry about reading and sounding out. So see it and say it. That is the demonstration. That was the see it and say it, and what you're going to see, what you're going to hear, how to lay it out, what you get, all that's in that one link.
Right. Yep. Okay. So that's on the YouTube channel.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. The viewer that was asked the question about the high school credits, she also added in, we don't have those restrictions in Iowa, which really you don't have them in Texas either as a homeschooler.
Right.
But assigning credits is completely different on a transcript. If you're trying to meet the state requirements for the public school, and I think that's what you were talking about, Susan.
Right.
Is that most states don't have requirements for classes, but if you're trying to meet the credit requirements for, say, a college or a university, you need to take into consideration what they consider a credit is worth. And so yes, and so in Iowa, you don't either. But she's been incorporating a little Spanish here and there over the past couple of years. I've had 5+ years of Spanish. And so, so maybe this is a good question. So for those families that have had a little bit of Spanish, what do you recommend? Should they start from the beginning still?
I do think so. A lot of students will come to my booth and they say, well, I've been doing Rosetta Stone for 3 years, or I've had co-op in Spanish, or I've had Spanish in co-op for 2.5 years, or whatever it is. I'll say, oh, wonderful. Well, this is the I like it card. Do you know how to say I like it? No, ma'am. They never know I like. And that's, to me, that's the essence of language, is expressing our opinion. And so the other part that's part of lesson 1 is I need, something I like and something I need. Those are very important phrases in communicating. And so even if you've done numbers and colors and weather and clothes and all those things, those are great because you'll add that in. You'll be able to say way more. But I would still say start with see it and say it level 1. And then on her transcript, I think she should absolutely say conversational Spanish. That way Iowa or whatever college isn't thinking, oh, well, you must have hit your 1,000 words or 3 tenses, this da-da-da-da-da-da. So as long as you call it conversational Spanish, the sky's the limit. You can watch movies in Spanish and speak, and you can do all kinds of options once you call it conversational Spanish rather than a level. Right.
Yep. It's the same thing with analytic math. So if anybody's wondering, you can make it applied math, and it's very different than theoretical math.
Yes.
So, but yes, and the sky's the limit with transcripts, and I gotta definitely do a whole hour on that because I know there's so many questions. But definitely, if you word it right, but again, it's back to that goal. What is your goal?
Right.
And if your goal is to make your child the most proficient in using the language that you're teaching them, then focus on something that they're going to be able to use, not just memorizing words that they can't connect. And I think that's what you're pointing out here in talking about your program and just your approach to foreign language in general, is that it has to be applicable, and then that's when it sinks in, and it makes it bridges those gaps so much better. And I think that's often the thing that keeps us at bay when we have kids who already struggle, is that it's something that's so kind of oblivious as to how are we going to make that happen. But this makes it so easy.
Yes. And it feels good. It feels easy and simple and chunky and light, and it's achievable. It's quick, and it's a flashcard. And so if you have, just that one flashcard, and then once you learn that one flashcard, or your child learns that one flashcard, tape it to the cabinet, tape it somewhere and say, hey, I did this. And just achieving something outside, because there's so many things that we try and we don't do well, and we're not consistent with. And so it's so nice when you said, I did that. And we all need those successes in our lives. And so I can see why foreign language would, absolutely get left behind or left to the end, because you say, I can't even get him to brush his teeth. I can't get him to remember where his shoes are. How in the world is he going to learn how to say shoes in Spanish? Well, that's the thing. Learning to say shoes in Spanish will probably cause him to find his shoes, because he's focused now. And so it just uses a whole different method that we're so fearful of, but it really is kind of the key to memory and decoding and all these things. And so try it. Just try it.
Yeah. And I think that's definitely what our parents need to hear, is just try it. And even if they just try to make up a couple flashcards, give it a go for a couple weeks, and, give yourself a lot of grace, because you're not going to have that habit yet either. So know that.
Right.
But see what happens. And I think they will be surprised.
Yes.
So you have some last reminders for our parents before we sign off. What are those?
I like to say over and over again, one word is better than 0 words. It's not how fast they learn or when they learn, but that they learn. I would also say 6 weeks. You want to try anything for 6 weeks, because everything is new for that honeymoon period. So even if you're not doing it consistently for 6 weeks, put a mark on your calendar and don't stop, don't give up, don't decide it didn't work for at least the full 6 weeks to like you said, to learn those habits, and give yourself space and a chance to even form. So, and then the last one was, to me, my dad always said it to me, is shoot for the moon and you'll land among the stars. And so I think we limit ourselves because we are, especially with the special needs kids, we're tired of them not being able to do whatever it is, or the comparison. And so we kind of protect ourselves because we're tired of trying and failing. And I think that's a bad way to look at it. I think it's a better way to say, okay, we haven't tried this yet. Let's try this. And you don't have to, it's not a whole lifestyle change. It's flashcards. It's just flashcards.
That's a very good point.
Just give it a shot. Right. And you're not committing it. You're not saying, I'm going to fail and stop. You're saying, I'm going to try it for 6 weeks. Then at the end of that 6 weeks, you say, I tried it for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And then you decide, do you want to do it for another 6? Or nope, that was good. We tried it for 6 weeks.
Yep. And then even if you do take a break, don't take a break forever.
Right.
Say, we're going to take some time off and we'll try it again. Because I know that it was even happened with my kids with food. It's so funny. You'd introduce a dish and they're like, no, I'm not touching this. And then you bring it back a couple times later and they go, what? You haven't made this before. This is so good. And I'm like, oh, yes, I have. But things change. Right. And things change to make it different. And you just don't know when that perfect timing is going to be. So I have one last question that just popped up.
Great.
And so let me see if I can get my mouse to work here. It says, will you be at any conferences in Texas?
Yes. So I'll be at both of the ones by THSC. I'll be at the Woodlands and the Arlington one. So Flip Flop Spanish will be at both of those. I don't know of any others in Texas. We went to the one in Tennessee. But I think that's it for this coming season. I haven't been to any of the smaller ones lately. But those 2 big ones we'll definitely be at, and I'll have some of my kiddos there, so that'll be fun.
Awesome. Well, I will see you there because I'm speaking at the one in the Woodlands too. So,
okay, great.
So that will be great, and actually a lot of our team will be there. We have a booth that we're going to be running. So awesome. Well, I just want to thank you, Suzanne, for your time. This has been so encouraging, and I'm so glad that we got connected because this is an incredible topic. It's not one that I probably would have ventured out to find about, but I'm so glad that our viewers have had a chance to understand just how much a foreign language can help their students, and kind of stretch their idea of that. So thank you again. And thank you for joining us on SPED Homeschool Conversations. We're here every Tuesday night, and we have a different guest. Next week, our guest is Dr. Carol Brown. And she's going to be talking to us about equipping minds with games. And so you'll definitely want to join us with that next week. But in the meantime, make sure you check out our website at spedhomeschool.com and also our YouTube channel, where this video will be uploaded on Sunday, as well as our podcast. The full version of the podcast of this episode will also be produced and uploaded on Sunday. And then next week, we'll have some little shorts that will be from this video, just to kind of put out some of the information that we shared this evening that we definitely want to recap. So thank you for joining us. Thank you again, Suzanne. And and if you can, make sure you pick SPED Homeschool as your chosen charity on Amazon Smile. That's the easiest way to support us, but we always welcome donations too on our website. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and that's how we keep going. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
All right. Bye. Thank you.